paint a familiar picture. You open your feedback dashboard, the scores look okay, NPS hasn't dropped, CSAT looks stable, but support tickets are getting sharper. Comments feel shorter, and suddenly churn starts creeping up. And you're left thinking, how did we miss this? Because here's the truth, customers don't wake up one day and then they churn. They get frustrated quietly, they lose patience slowly, and the signals are already there, buried in text. That's what sentiment really is. Not a happy or sad label, it's emotional momentum, and most teams only notice it when it's already too late. In 2026, AI sentiment analysis isn't about tagging feedback as positive or negative, it's about detecting early emotional shifts across surveys, support tickets, chats, and reviews before they turn into churn, escalations, or bad press. Hi, I'm Kanika from Zonka Feedback, your go-to platform for surveys, customer experience management, and AI-powered feedback intelligence. And in today's video, I'm going to break down the top AI sentiment analysis tools you should know in 2026, how they actually detect sentiment and what kinds of feedback they analyze best, and which tools help teams act before sentiment turns into damage. So if you have ever felt like the numbers looked fine but something was still off, this video is for you. Let's get into it. Zonka Feedback. If you're looking for an AI sentiment analysis tool that doesn't just label feedback as positive or negative, but actually helps you understand how customer emotions is shifting, this is where Zonka Feedback stands out. Because sentiment isn't static, it builds, changes, and escalates. And Zonka is built to track that across entire customer experience. Zonka analyzes sentiment across multiple feedback sources, including survey comments, support tickets, chat conversations, and in-product feedback. So instead of seeing sentiment in silos, you get a unified sentiment view across all places customers express emotions. That alone helps teams catch emotional shifts much earlier than the score-based reporting. At a high level, Zonka Feedback gives you an overall sentiment score for your feedback program or project. This shows you whether sentiment is trending positive, neutral, or negative, and how that sentiment is changing over time. Even when metrics like NPS or CSAT haven't moved yet, this is often the first signal that something is about to break. Sentiment becomes much more useful when you can break it down. With Zonka Feedback, you can analyze sentiment by feedback channels, customer segments, location or branch, and urgency. So you're not just seeing that sentiment dropped, you know exactly where it dropped, who it's affecting, and how serious it is. Zonka's AI also applies sentiment at the theme level. As unstructured feedback comes in, the AI groups responses into themes and sub-themes and assigns sentiment to each one. Inside the snapshot report, you can see overall sentiment for the projects, sentiment score for each theme, how frequently each theme appears, and how sentiment for those themes is changing over time. This makes it very easy to answer which topics are driving negative sentiment right now. Is frustration around onboarding growing or stabilizing? Which issues feel emotionally charged versus minor? Zonka Feedback also highlights themes in focus, themes that are trending, and themes that are just starting to emerge. This is critical for sentiment analysis because the emotional problems rarely explode overnight. They show up quietly first. On a more tactical level, Zonka Feedback helps teams work faster with sentiment data. Responses are automatically tagged by sentiment, whether it is positive, neutral, or negative, so teams can filter feedback quickly without reading everything. You also get word clouds that help you instantly see which words and phrases are showing up most often in negative or emotionally charged feedback. Another important capability is how Zonka surfaces urgent or high-risk sentiment. Angry, frustrated, or distressed feedback is flagged so it doesn't get buried in averages. Teams can filter responses by negative sentiment and urgency to triage issues that need immediate attention. Zonka Feedback also connects sentiment insights to CX metrics like NPS, CSAT, and CES, so when scores change, you can see how sentiment contributed to that shift and which emotions are actually influencing loyalty or dissatisfaction. And sentiment analysis doesn't stop at its side. With Zonka's response inbox, alerts, and workflows, negative or urgent sentiment can trigger follow-ups, assignments, and escalation. So someone acts while the customer still cares, because sentiment only helps if you respond in time. So, if you want an AI sentiment analysis tool that tracks emotional shifts across feedback sources, analyzes sentiment by theme, channel, location, and urgency, surfaces early warning signals through trends and emerging themes, and helps teams act before sentiment turns into churn, Zonka Feedback isn't just measuring sentiment, it's helping teams stay ahead of it. Chattermill. Now, if your challenge with sentiment isn't detecting it but getting everyone to see the same emotional reality, Chattermill takes a very different approach. Chattermill treats sentiment analysis as a shared source of truth. The goal isn't just to label feedback as positive or negative, it's to make shifts in customer emotion impossible to ignore across teams. Chattermill analyzes sentiment across large volumes of customer feedback from surveys, support conversations, app reviews, and other text-heavy channels. But instead of surfacing sentiment as isolated scores, it focuses on patterns and movements. So teams don't ask what's the sentiment right now, they ask why does sentiment feel worse than last one? What's slowly becoming a problem? What changed after this release? One of Chattermill's strengths is sentiment comparison over time. You can track how sentiment shifts month over month, which topics are becoming more emotionally charged, and where frustration is quietly building. This is especially useful when sentiment erosion happens gradually, long before it shows up in churn or NPS drops. Chattermill also applies sentiment in close connection with themes. As feedback is analyzed, sentiment is mapped to recurring topics so teams can see which themes consistently carry negative emotion, which ones are stabilizing, which ones are improving. This helps teams focus discussions around emotionally impactful themes, not just volume heavy ones. Another defining aspect of Chattermill sentiment analysis is how it's consumed inside organizations. Different teams can look at the same sentiment data through different lenses, product, support, CX, leadership, but everyone is grounded in the same emotional signals. That reduces internal debates about whose data is correct and shifts conversation towards action. Chattermill sentiment analysis is less about triggering immediate responses and more about guiding decisions and priorities. Teams use it to align roadmaps, inform CX strategy, and track whether changes are actually improving how customers feel. So, if you're looking for an AI sentiment analysis tool that helps teams see emotional trends clearly, track sentiment erosion before it becomes obvious, connect sentiments to themes for better decision making, and aligns the organization around a shared customer reality, Chattermill is a strong choice, especially for teams that want sentiment analysis to influence strategy, not just dashboards. Thematic. Now, if your biggest concern with sentiment analysis is accuracy, not just speed, Thematic takes a very different approach. Thematic is built for teams that want sentiment analysis they can trust at scale. It treats sentiment not as a surface label, but as a measurable signal that needs to stay consistent over time. Thematic analyzes sentiment across large volumes of unstructured feedback, surveys, support tickets, reviews, and other text-heavy data sources. But instead of quickly tagging sentiment and moving on, Thematic focuses on getting sentiment right. That matters when you're tracking sentiment month over month, comparing sentiment across regions or products, or using sentiment trends to inform long-term decisions. One of Thematic's biggest strengths is sentiment consistency. As new feedback comes in, the platform ensures sentiment is classified using the same logic and context. So your sentiment trends don't shift just because volume or wording changes. This is especially important for measuring views and insights teams that care about clean trend lines rather than noisy spikes. Thematic also applies sentiment in close connection with themes. Sentiment isn't just attached to individual comments, it's aggregated at theme level. So teams can see how sentiment around specific topics evolve, which issues consistently carry negative emotion, and which areas are improving over time. This allows sentiment to be interpreted in context, not isolation. Another defining aspect of thematic sentiment analysis is transparency. Teams can drill into themes and see exactly what comments are contributing to positive or negative sentiment. This makes it easier to validate insights, build confidence in the analysis, and explain sentiment trends to stakeholders. Thematic is less about reacting in real time and more about understanding emotional patterns deep. It's often used to track long-term sentiment shifts, validate CX initiatives, and support research-driven decisions where accuracy matters more than immediacy. So, if you're looking for an AI assistant analysis tool that prioritizes accuracy and consistency, handles sentiment reliably at scale, connects emotion to themes for contexts, and supports long-term trend analysis, Thematic is a strong choice, especially for teams that want sentiment insights they can defend and stand behind. Qualtrics. Now, if your organization treats sentiment analysis as something that needs to be consistent, explainable, and enterprise ready, Qualtrics is built for that and more. Qualtrics approaches sentiment analysis through a measurement and a governance lens. The goal isn't just to understand emotion, it's to ensure sentiment insights are reliable, standardized, and defensible across large organizations. Qualtrics applies AI sentiment analysis to unstructured feedback from sources like surveys, digital feedback, and other voice of customer channels, primarily through its Text IQ and XM Discover. Feedback is automatically classified as positive, neutral, or negative, and sentiment scores can be aggregated across segments, time periods, and programs. Where Qualtrics really stands out is how sentiment is quantified. Instead of treating sentiment as a loose label, Qualtrics assigns numeric sentiment scores that can be tracked, compared, and reported consistently. This makes it easier for large teams to benchmark sentiment across regions or products, compare sentiment quarter over quarter, and monitor emotional trends at scale. Qualtrics also ties sentiment closely to experience metrics. Sentiment insights can be analyzed alongside NPS, CSAT, and CES so teams can understand how emotional tone correlates with experience outcomes. This is especially useful when leadership wants clear, measurable relationships between customer emotion and CX performance. Another important aspect is control and governance. Qualtrics allows organizations to standardize how sentiment is interpreted, ensuring that different teams aren't using different logics or definitions. This matters in regulated or highly structured environments where insights needs to be repeatable and explainable. Qualtrics' sentiment analysis is typically used as a part of formal voice of customer program. Insights are reviewed, validated, and then acted on through defined processes and downstream systems rather than fast ad hoc responses. So if you're looking for an AI sentiment analysis tool that offers consistent numeric sentiment scoring, scales across enterprise VOC programs, connects sentiment to CX metrics, and supports strong governance and reporting, Qualtrics is a strong fit, especially for large organizations where sentiment analysis needs to be precise, auditable, and standardized across teams. SentiSum. Now, if most of your customer sentiment shows up inside support tickets, emails, chats, or calls, SentiSum is built specifically for that environment. SentiSum treats sentiment analysis as a frontline signal. The goal isn't long-term reporting, it's helping support and CX teams understand how customers are feeling right now and where pressure is building. SentiSum applies AI sentiment analysis directly to support conversations like tickets, emails, chat transcripts, and even call summaries. As conversations come in, the AI detects sentiment and classifies messages based on emotional tone. So instead of agents or managers having to read everything, sentiment patterns surface automatically. Where SentiSum really stands out is how sentiment is combined with urgency and intent. Negative sentiment isn't treated as just bad, it's analyzed in context, whether the customer is frustrated, angry, confused, or at risk. This helps teams quickly identify which tickets need escalation, which customers are emotionally distressed, and where support load is likely to spike. SentiSum's sentiment analysis is designed to work in real operation flows. Insights can be used to prioritize ticket queues, flag risky conversations, and understand which issues are generating the most emotional friction for customers. This is especially valuable for support leaders trying to balance volume with customer experience. Another strength is how sentiment is tracked by issue type. As feedback is analyzed, sentiment is linked to recurring support topics, so teams can see which problems consistently trigger negative emotion and which ones are calming down. This turns sentiment analysis into a practical input for fixing root causes, not just managing conversations. SentiSum is less about enterprise dashboards and more about operational awareness. It's typically used alongside ticketing system where sentiment insights guide decisions in real time. So, if you're looking for an AI sentiment analysis tool that focuses on support conversation, detects negative and urgent emotions early, helps team prioritize and escalate faster, and turns frontline sentiment into actionable signals, SentiSum is a strong choice, especially for organizations where support interactions are the loudest source of customer emotion. Keatext. Now, if your goal with sentiment analysis isn't just labeling emotion, but understanding what drives customer sentiment, why it's happening, and how you can respond, Keatext gives you that kind of clarity. Keatext is an AI-powered text analytics platform built around unstructured feedback analysis from multiple channels: surveys, reviews, support tickets, contact center interactions, and much more. And within that context, sentiment analysis is a core part of how the platform surfaces meaning from feedback at scale. At its heart, Keatext uses advanced AI and natural language processing to dig deeper into customer emotion beyond simple positive negative labels. It doesn't just tell you this is painful or this is good, it helps you understand drivers of sentiment, the topics and opinions that actually shape satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Keatext sentiment analysis works in concert with theme and topic detection, meaning emotion isn't just a number, it's connected to why people feel that way. So you can see clearly which issues consistently trigger negative sentiment, which topics customers feel positive about, and how sentiment differs across feedback channels. Another strength is omnichannel unification. Keatext brings feedback from surveys, reviews, support tickets, and contact center conversations into one unified dashboard. That unified view lets you compare sentiment across contexts, like whether frustration in support correlates with negative reviews online. Keatext doesn't stop at raw sentiments, it also helps teams understand the drivers behind sentiment, pinpointing underlying causes and opportunities for improvement. This means sentiment becomes actionable, not just a label but a starting point for decision making. Real-time reporting and customizable dashboards make it easy to monitor sentiment trends as they develop. Teams can segment sentiment by product lines, geographies, or time periods, so you are not guessing whether emotion is improving, you are seeing it. Another practical advantage is multilingual support, which lets teams analyze sentiment across languages without losing context. For global brands, that's critical. The tone of feedback can vary widely across markets, and Keatext helps retain accuracy in interpretation. What stands out with Keatext is its combination of sentiment depth, cross-channel unification, and actionable context. It's not about sentiment as a static score, it's about understanding sentiment drivers and acting on them to improve satisfaction, reduce churn, and drive better customer experiences. So if you're looking for an AI sentiment analysis tool that connects sentiment to real customer issues, analyzes emotion across feedback types, and shows you not just how customers feel, but why, and makes the insights easy to explore across audiences, Keatext is a strong choice for teams that want sentiment analysis to lead to strategy and action, not just dashboards. Lexalytics. Now, if you're looking for sentiment analysis not as a dashboard you log into, but as an engine you can plug into your own systems, Lexalytics is built exactly for that. Lexalytics' core offering is its Salience text analytics engine designed for teams that need deep NLP and flexible deployment, especially when data privacy or infrastructure control matters. What makes Lexalytics interesting for sentiment analysis is that it's not just doing positive, neutral, negative, it scores sentiment on a continuous scale and then maps it into categories so you can track nuance, not just labels. And importantly, the sentiment logic accounts for real language complexity. Things like negators, not bad, and intensifiers, super comfy, which can completely flip or amplify sentiment if a system is too simplistic. Lexalytics also emphasizes entity-aware sentiment. So sentiment doesn't have to be assigned to the whole comment. It can be tied to what the customer is actually talking about: a product, a feature, a location, a brand, or another entity the engine extracts. That's a big deal because many teams don't just want to know, is this feedback negative? They want to know what exactly is getting negative sentiment and how strongly. Another reason teams use Lexalytics for sentiment analysis is deployment flexibility. You can run Salience as an on-prem or hybrid NLP engine, or use Semantria, which exposes Salience capabilities through REST API, again with flexible deployment option depending on your security needs. This is why Lexalytics is often chosen by data teams and enterprises that want sentiment analysis embedded inside their pipelines, instead of routing sensitive text data through a SAS-only workflow. So if you are looking for an AI sentiment analysis solution that handles real language nuance like negation and intensity, supports entity-aware sentiment, and can be deployed as an engine or API inside your own stack, Lexalytics is a strong option, especially when control and customization matters. When you step back and look at all these AI sentiment analysis tools together, one thing becomes clear. AI sentiment analysis isn't about finding out whether feedback is positive or negative. It's about understanding emotional movement. where frustration is building, where trust is eroding, and where things are quietly improving. Different tools approach this in different ways. Some are built to catch sentiment early and help teams act fast. Some focus on making emotional trends visible across organization. Others prioritize accuracy, governance, or operational sentiment inside support conversations. The right choice depends on where your feedback lives, how quickly you need to react, and how sentiment fits into your decision making. If sentiment still feels reactive in your organization, AI sentiment analysis can help you shift from finding problems late to spotting emotional risks early. And if you're looking to bring sentiment analysis across surveys, support tickets, chats, and in product feedback into one unified view and analyze it, check out AI powered Zonka Feedback from the link in the description below. If this video helped, don't forget to like it, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which tools you are currently using for your sentiment analysis, or which one would you like me to break down next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.